Yeah, hello, wonderful people, viewers and subscribers. Like I promised you on my last live broadcast that I'm going to bring you this program. Um, it became very necessary for me to revisit this very topical issue, like South Sudan, like Biafra. Some time ago, I've punctured on this very issue regarding how freedom or independence is attained by those who seek it. All right, using South Sudan as an example. Now, I want to revisit this video because I think when I did that, this family was much more very young, and it's very important as the demand for the freedom of our people gets thicker. There is need to revisit it. So, having said that, um, I want you to listen to a very brief summary of the case of South Sudan. I'll be right back.
How South Sudan got independence. In the 1890s, British forces invaded Sudan and brought it under their control. They brought in British officials to administer the vast region and imposed their policies. After World War I, the Sudanese nationalism movement began to gain some steam, coming to the realization that the British could not suppress Sudanese desire for self-governance and complete independence. The British colonizers signed an agreement in 1953 that granted the Sudanese self-governance. Though free from British rule, the undeveloped, mainly Christian and animist South was under the administration of the predominantly Muslim North, based in Khartoum. The divide was growing so widely within the newly autonomous Sudan. Soon, the southern part of the country began to call for a federal system that would give it some level of autonomy from the central government. When this was refused, it provoked a mutiny by southern military officials that launched Sudan's first civil war, which lasted from 1955 to 1972. The northern Sudanese desire from the beginning was to unify the country under Arab Muslim control based in the north. By so doing, they alienated Christians and animists in the south and other marginalized groups. Even though the South was divided concerning if it wanted complete independence or a federal system, they were unified in their opposition of a central government. All through the 1960s, successive civilian governments worsened the situation by not allowing any meaningful level of self-determination to the South. When in 1972, secular socialist leader Colonel Ghaffar Mohammed Nimeiri came up with a policy that granted autonomy to the South and signed it into agreement, Southerners showed their gratitude by helping Colonel Nimeiri put down two coup attempts. However, his early support did not last as it was swept away when pressure from the North forced him to abandon his support for the South. The final blow to the South's agitations for autonomy came when oil was discovered in the South. In 1983, Nimeiri abolished the separate southern region and put all control in the hands of the central government. He also made Arabic the official language there as well. These hostile and insensitive decisions against the South triggered the Second Civil War and gave birth to the Sudanese People's Liberation Movement and Army, SPLA-M. 2 years later, in 1985, Nimeiri was overthrown. During the following transitional governance period, a number of half-hearted attempts at peace failed over the question of exempting the South from Islamic law. The South insisted on this, but it was totally unacceptable for many in the central government. The new president of Sudan installed the National Islamic Front government in 1989. His party's emphasis on co-opting Islam into the political and legal systems of the country served to heighten the North-South conflicts. Meanwhile, the SPLAM had begun to gain influence, becoming the main voice for South Sudanese. The eastern and western regions, having been alienated by Bashir, had taken sides with the southern rebels led by SPLAM under Colonel John Garang's leadership. Although a number of agreements were signed between the central government and some of the southern rebel factions to end the conflict between the north and south, the SPLA was not one of the parties in those agreements. In 2002, the central government and the SPLAM began talks to agree on ending the civil war. The talks continued, and in 2005, the two sides signed a comprehensive peace agreement which clearly laid out a plan for southern autonomy for the next 6 years, followed by a referendum in the south on its independence. The agreement also included a power-sharing arrangement for the central government that made SPLAM leader Garang the vice president of Sudan. Unfortunately, Garang died in a helicopter crash only a few months later, and Salva Kiir, his vice president, became the vice president of the central government. He also took over the leadership of the SPLAM. In the years between the signing of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement and the referendum, there was considerable calm between the North and South, although sometimes open conflict still broke out. Finally, on the 9th of January 2011, South Sudanese came out en masse to vote in a referendum on their independence. More than 99% of them voted in favor of secession from northern Sudan. With the votes, many South Sudanese began returning to their homes ahead of the independence. South Sudan officially became an independent state on the 9th of July 2011, making it the newest country in the world at that time.
Good. Now you've heard it all. If you listen attentively, you will see and understand and agree with me that everything that had happened in South Sudan is exactly what we are witnessing in Nigeria, beginning with the role of the British people and the establishment of divide and rule between the North and the South, whereas the North, who are predominantly Muslims, are in charge, they are in power, intimidating, suppressing, and subjugating the free will of those Southern Sudan. Now, just like we are witnessing in Nigeria, exactly the same thing since Nigerian independence. It is this divide and rule handing over the power to the North through the structure of Nigeria. Yes, some of you will say that, but that first time it was a regional autonomy. But if you check Nigerian constitution before the independence, the North insisted that they will not be part of any Nigeria where they will not be given at least 50% of the seats, the representative seat at the central government. That is how they have caged Nigeria politically up to today. Not that they have caged Nigeria politically up to today is actually the problem. But just like in the South Sudan, they try to impose Islamization on those of the South who are predominantly Muslim. Just exactly what we are witnessing right here in Nigeria. So you see, it is the very same situation in South Sudan that we are faced with right here in Nigeria. Talking about resources, the oil was discovered in the South. The oil from the South is what is being used to run the economy of the Sudanese people. Yet, Sudanese people are not allowed to be in charge of their resources and their well-being. They are being undermined. You see that? You had all of that. That is exactly what we are seeing in Nigeria, isn't it? Good. Now, All of the things that we have been through as a people in Nigeria is exactly what we saw or heard them say in this summary about South Sudan, which even went to the war. Biafran people went to war because of this very same issue. All right. Now, if all of this, we are now on almost on the same page, on the same track, how then were they able to gain their independence? Now, I want you to listen to this very short, brief analysis of how they got their independence. I mean, the South Sudanese. I'll be right back.
As we speak, pro-Russian separatists are trying to secede from Ukraine. The Kurdish regional government is trying to secede from Iraq, and Scotland has a vote scheduled in September that may result in their seceding from the UK. Secession is in the air, and it brings up an important question. If the people of a particular region want to secede, why can't they? There are a lot of ways you could argue this question, but the simplest answer is this. Dissatisfaction in a nation's leaders, its economy, or its government is not enough to secede. You need much more than that. To illustrate this point, let's look at South Sudan and how they successfully seceded from Sudan in 2011. Sudan has a history of conflict between the Muslim majority in the north and the non-Muslim minority in the sub-Saharan south. It was the South that won the right to secede in 2011. They did this by having an established cultural group and region, a history of being institutionally marginalized, an independent representative system of government, and the economic means to establish and protect their new state without bankrupting the other state through secession. Those last points were earned in the Second Sudanese Civil War, which ended in a peace agreement that formally established a representative body for South Sudan. It also created a plan for oil revenue splitting between North and South, and a plan for federal job sharing countrywide. They also needed to prove that there was no better alternative to secession, a point well made by 50-plus years of conflicts and all-out war in the region. Even then, meeting just those requirements isn't enough. You still need wide support among your cultural group and region. You need comparable support from the nation you're leaving, and you need support from the international community. Luckily for South Sudan, all of that did fall into place, and on July 9, 2011, they won their right to secede after a secession referendum was voted on earlier that month. Almost 99% of registered voters in South Sudan voted for secession, and almost 58% of registered voters in the north voted for it as well. Later that month, the UN officially recognized South Sudan as its own nation. That, in a nutshell, is what you need to secede.
Now you had that. Now, I want us to take it one step at a time, what she mentioned, and now place it at par with what we are doing, and now judge for ourselves. Are we on the right path?
Secession is in the air, and it brings up an important question. If the people of a particular region want to secede, why can't they? There are a lot of ways you could argue this question, but the simplest answer is this. Dissatisfaction in a nation's leaders, its economy, or its government is not enough to secede. You need much more than that.
Now, let me pause it there. You say dissatisfaction in the economy and how things are done is not enough to want to succeed. Huh? Why is that? Our lamentation, that's what is the interpretation to that, is that our lamentation, our cry, our outburst is not just enough for us to get independence. Let's continue.
Sudan has a history of conflict between the Muslim majority in the north and the non-Muslim minority in the sub-Saharan south.
Exactly. This conflict is what we are witnessing in Nigeria up to today, just like I mentioned earlier. All right? Keep watching, and why I wanted to bring it one after the other so that we will understand where we miss it and how we can get back on track. Let's continue.
It was the South that won the right to secede in 2011. They did this by having an established cultural group and region, a history of being institutionally marginalized, an independent representative system of government, and the economic means to establish and protect their new state without bankrupting the other state through secession.
All right. Let me quickly take this one after the other. Established group. They have an established group agitating for this freedom. So they were to a large extent unified in their purpose for this freedom. Marginalization. The marginalization is glaring, just like we're witnessing. Then independent government. They were able to establish an independent government within South Sudan. That is why when I look at some of the valid points with respect to those asking for regional government, regional autonomy in Nigeria, that will enable the Biafrans or the Southerners, from my own perception, so don't crucify me, to have a reasonable control of their economy, have a reasonable control of their space, being able to organize themselves, and now push for the international diplomacy. As we continue, you go hear more.
Those last points were earned in the Second Sudanese Civil War, which ended in a peace agreement that formally established a representative body for South Sudan. It also created a plan for oil revenue splitting between North and South, and a plan for federal job sharing countrywide. They also needed to prove that there was no better alternative to secession, a point well made by 50-plus years of conflicts and all-out war in the region.
You see, after you have been able to establish all of this, and yet you say this is not enough for us to say that we are now okay, we don't want to pull out. No. You have to go further to show and demonstrate that this regional government will ultimately undermine your ultimate freedom. All right? And that is when you start engaging in international diplomacy. We will continue on this. Listen.
Even then, meeting just those requirements isn't enough. You still need wide support among your cultural group and region. You need comparable support from the nation you're leaving, and you need support from the international community.
This is where diplomacy comes in. This is where diplomacy comes into play. Whether local diplomacy or international diplomacy, everyone, as no uche ka ejunesi aga n'ogu. It is wisdom that snail trade upon the scorns, that is what the Biafran people need to apply now. Wisdom is paramount. Let's continue.
Luckily for South Sudan, all of that did fall into place, and on July 9th, 2011, they won their right to secede after a secession referendum was voted on earlier that month.
Now, if you look at this, all of this that have been said so far, you will agree with me that they were able to get this far because they had taken these things step after the other. They started from within to organize themselves to get a regional autonomy to a large extent. Then from there, they now were able to push for an independence through international diplomacy, because to a large extent, they are in control of their economy. They are in control of what the international communities are interested in. I keep saying it. You see, if the resources of the Biafran people are still in control of these people from the north, let me tell you, the Western world, the international community that we are putting on notice every time we are being killed, we keep looking the other way, just like we've been witnessing. It's a plain hard truth. And that is why I kept advocating that the Biafran people should take over government. I'm not talking about taking over government in Nigeria, so don't misconcept that, don't twist it. Okay? I am saying that Biafran people should at least be in, those who are driven by this ideology of freedom should at least be in control of their region. We should stop crying foul of saboteurs in government, because we endorse them to be in government. The people agitating for freedom are greater in number. Use the number, because that is the number of politics. Use that number to overrun the government, take over power, and use same to pursue for your independence, just like the South Sudanese. This is all I can tell you. This is all I can bring to you right now. Let the discussion continue. This is my opinion and I'm entitled to it. I'm not forcing it on anybody. I'm bringing it up for all of us to do what? To deliberate and, brainstorm through it. Thank you for watching this far. This is BVI Channel 1. I am Asuchined Peters, the voice of our ancestors. Trust me, here we see it, we say it. We are not here to be politically correct. We are not here to be, factional. We don't belong to any pro-Biafran group. We are not here to represent any particular opinion. We are here to stand by the truth and say it the way it is. Thank you for watching this far. Keep dropping your comment. If you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not. Share and like. God bless you. Stay safe.